Hello and welcome to Inside CLA by Community-Led Alliance. I'm your host, Jade Warne, copywriter here at CLA. In this series, we'll be interviewing people at the top leadership level at CLA and our umbrella company, the Alliance, but through the lens of community-led growth. Community-Led Alliance is one of 14 communities under the Alliance umbrella. The Alliance itself is a community-led media platform, so it's no surprise that community-led growth is at the heart of everything we do. When it comes to CLG strategy, we know our stuff, but we also know it's a unique way to set up a company. That's why we wanted to open the doors to what it really means to run a community-led media platform, from the people who are actually doing it. Our goal? To give you an honest insight into why we're so passionate about community-led growth, to explore the whys, hows, do's and don'ts of CLG strategy, and to deepen your understanding of how different senior roles look in a community-led organisation. Our guest today is Josie King. She's the Chief Operating Officer of the Alliance in CLA. She's in charge of keeping the cogs of the machine turning day in and day out. Now, the role of COO won't be unfamiliar to many of you, but how different does that role look when the organisation they work within is community-led? That's exactly what we're going to explore today, as well as how a customer-first approach and business strategy translates into company culture. I'm really interested to hear Josie's insights, so let's dive in. Hi Josie, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being a guest. So please introduce yourself to our listeners.
Thanks so much, Jade. Really great to be on the pod. My name is Josie and I am COO here at the Alliance.
And what does a day in the life of a COO look like?
That's a really interesting question because when I look across my week, there isn't really a typical day. I think that's probably quite common across someone in a role such as this, but it's also what I love about the role. It's varied, it's project-based, and I get to dive into a ton of different interesting things and projects daily.
Walk us through your professional background and how that led you to the Alliance and CLA.
So I began my career in the B2B publishing and media space, and that was predominantly focused at that time on business-to-business events and conferences. How to get a really cool group of people within a similar niche job title or function into a room and deliver some really good content that's valuable for them. Throughout my career, I've built and scaled events and publishing businesses, built some really awesome teams, looked at how we can do things differently in terms of how we execute compared to other competitors and kind of like legacy brands in the space. I guess a common thread throughout that is that focus on people and building a culture and working together to create something new and different that provides value.
Brilliant. So as a COO, do you think your role differs in this company, a community-led organisation, to that of a typical COO?
That's an interesting question because I don't think you would get a typical COO role. It's very dependent on the type of organisation, the market you operate in, and also like the size and where you're at in that kind of life cycle of that organisation. So for me, it's a focus on how do we scale our organisation to allow us to hit our growth goals over the next kind of short to mid term, and how being community-led feeds into that is, you know, we're all about providing value for our communities. So it's about how do we best do that as an organisation and how do we do that at scale. A big part of how we do that and projects that I'm focused on at the moment is looking at our internal team and looking at that as our community. So how do we attract the best talent? How do we provide value, an awesome culture, a great working environment that people can come in, do their best work and help us along our journey of growth.
So how would you define community-led growth?
I would define community-led growth as listening to your market, understanding what they would see as valuable and understanding how to deliver that. There's a ton of growth opportunities that come from asking the right questions, listening, the ability to remain agile in terms of how we decide on what products we're going to focus on, what our roadmap looks like, how we want to execute on that. Constant kind of feedback loop and being able to adapt and change as our communities do, because they're kind of living and breathing and changing entities of themselves.
Definitely.
So.
Do you think running a company with a community-led structure has an impact on the company culture?
Definitely. We want to foster the culture of kind of come in, do something that's impactful, and take autonomy over that, and help us achieve something that's going to deliver that value. So we really look for people who want to come into an organisation, build something and grow something, which is difficult. When we're starting these community brands and we're kind of understanding what our product roadmap might look like, there's often not a lot there to begin with. So it's the ability to listen, spot commercial opportunities and be excited to kind of build and scale. That's definitely something that we look for in people that join the company and tend to do really well here.
Definitely. I think it's also a great indicator that you also view the internal team as its own community. I mean, for a community-led organisation, that's probably the best way to view it because it's all about community. And do you think businesses have a lot to gain from having a community-led approach?
Businesses can gain some really great first-hand feedback from their audience or their customers. Part of being community-led is understanding, asking questions, testing ideas and products and getting feedback. So I think any business needs to have a really good understanding of their target market and customers. I don't think it's unique to a community-led organisation or as an organisation that defines themselves as being community-led. So yeah, I think there's a ton to learn there.
Definitely. When bringing new people into the community, is there a certain type of personality trait you're looking for?
There's a ton of things that we look for when we're building our team here at the Alliance. As I mentioned, we see it as our own internal community. So we're looking for people who understand why we do what we do. We want people to really see the value that we create for our community members and get excited about that. We also look for people who want to come in and they're excited to grow and build and do something different that's going to have a real impact and purpose. So yeah, we like people to get excited about what they're doing. I think it's really important in your role to have that. I think it's a huge motivator. But you know, it's our job as leaders at the organisation to foster that culture as well. That's really important.
Definitely. So I know when it comes to community, it's all about people first and offering them value. Do you think that's something that sort of harkens back or echoes through the company and the way that people are and lead?
Yeah, 100%. And it's really crucial when we're looking at not just bringing in some awesome talent to the organisation to help us achieve our growth goals, but also once we have that talent in-house, making sure that people have an environment that they're going to do their best work and that they can grow with us along their career journey. Like, it's very much a journey here at the Alliance as we continue to build and scale. And when we look across our communities, we have different communities at different stages of growth. It's important for people to understand that and understand the environment that we have. We've gone through an exercise recently where we've really tried to nail down what our values and our culture and our behaviours are. Definitely. When we look across the organisation, there's a lot of commonality in terms of how people who thrive here act and behave and talk to customers and execute. So it's really important to think of our team as our own internal community. We can't do that without asking for feedback from people in the organisation. So we've started to do a lot more of that. We want to understand, you know, why have people come to the Alliance? What's great, but where are the areas that we need to do better? We have such a strong kind of growth roadmap, and we want to make sure people understand where we're going as an organisation and where they fit into that plan. I think anyone who is used to kind of building and scaling teams wants to make sure that we we keep people along for the ride, and that's a really great place to be. Not everyone will grow and thrive in an organisation like this at this stage of growth, and not everybody will be staying in a role for 4, 5, 6, 7 years. But if people can come in, contribute to our team, have fun whilst doing it, do some really impactful work, and then go on to do something awesome, we'd consider that like a job well done.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a super interesting point. The exercise you talk about is this work with Culture Amp, where I know I've obviously experienced it as an employee, sort of giving that feedback and really feeling that it's about making sure everyone's got the room to say what they think's going well, what maybe could do with a bit more work, and just sort of knowing that as in a community, you're sort of checking and making sure that people are getting that value and getting the most out of what they're doing, because that's the way you make people the happiest. What have been some of the biggest challenges in your role so far? Big question.
That is a big question, and there's different challenges, and they're usually tied to which stage of growth that we're going through at the time. One challenge, and it still is a challenge, and I think it's a challenge across a number of businesses at the moment, is finding and attracting the talent that can come in and help us achieve our growth plans. So that's certainly top of mind. The world of work has changed. I think people's expectations have changed, and it's about how do we create and foster the great culture that I think we have, and promote that effectively to get awesome people to come and join our Alliance community. So yeah, there's certainly a challenge there. Other challenges with growing and scaling an organisation are, just how we operate. When you go from one community to 14, and when you go from 25 people in an environment where you're used to being in almost every conversation to over 100 people.
It's difficult to know when to sort of step back.
Yeah, well, it's just impossible, and it's not something that makes sense to be in every conversation, but we have to then develop a few more ways in which we operate, so different operating principles that allows us to work consistently across the organisation, but not really stifle us in terms of being too rigid. Like, we have to be agile. There's things that work whilst we scale to a point. There's ways that we operate which are fantastic for certain community brands, but perhaps not others. And it's about putting in the right level of infrastructure, but also having that ability to be agile, test and iterate, and continue to listen to what the market and what the customers are saying. That's a challenge.
Yeah, definitely very big challenges. I'm not sure I can handle those. And likewise, what have been some of the wins?
Narrowing down the wins is difficult, and that's an amazing place to be. A few that stick in my mind. Going out there and creating a community that just didn't exist before. So what the team have done in building Product Marketing Alliance as our kind of one of our original community brands, and how that has grown to what it is today is just a huge win, and it's fantastic to see. Especially
in the time frame that you've been able to turn that around. I think that's also something incredible to remember. I mean, I know when I was joining, I was looking at it, I was like, how have they only started in 2019 or whenever it was? That's a massive amount of growth, and I think it, ripples through the company how well that's done. Yeah. One that springs to mind is just understanding the impact that being part of our communities can have on individuals at various stages of their career journey. So it's not just about creating that space for people to network and share challenges, but when you look at our course library, the market leading research that we put out to those community members, we know that people have landed their new role, or off the back of that certification, or met someone through being on the same course cohort and built their own network, and are able to progress through their careers in a way that perhaps they wouldn't before. There's folks that have been able to access
really niche, good quality educational content that didn't exist before, that's helping them on their career journey.
Definitely.
And for those people to report back that that's happening is fantastic. And then also for those community members to go on and be our biggest advocates and want to get involved and give back to the community and help us grow it is really, really nice to see. So I'd definitely put that there as a win as well.
It's definitely a very big win.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. I feel like I've learned so much about your role, and I'm sure our listeners will have as well. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thanks, Jade.
Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Inside CLA. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you're hungry for more insights, make sure you head to our website, www.communityledgrowth.com, where you can find a wide variety of digital content. To join in the conversation, check out our growing Slack community of CLG professionals. You can find the link on our website, or if you're watching this on YouTube, in the description box below. See you in the next episode.